Alright, hello peoples who are out there. Ben here from Second Dynasty. It is a public holiday today, so I'm the only one in the office doing my thing. Just came in for a few hours. Let's see, just double checking that this actually is streaming, because it was a little bit last minute. And now I've realized I can't put the Discord on. Actually, I can swap that over. If I go to a close-up, you'll just have to put up with me for a tiny little second here as I get set up. The stream kind of snuck up on me. Let's see, I just need to check to see that this thing is actually going. Let's see, dashboard, content, live, and then let's see. More actions. How do I actually see this thing? Let's see. If anyone's in the chat, could they just... Oh, there we go. Tamsin. Thank you. All right. I'm not just talking to myself. Awesome. So, another week has gone by. Working on the Beowulf. I've got the usual caveats. I'm Ben from Second Dynasty. I make 3D printable starships. This one is an officially licensed traveler starship, the Type A free trader Beowulf. And there has been a significant amount of work since last week, which is... yeah, John, you probably didn't get the alert because I didn't actually start the stream until like 1 minute before, so I don't think it had time. Usually I put it up and register it. I really didn't. I kind of last minute decided I was even streaming or realized it was Thursday. So we got a lot of work done and a lot on the cargo bay and some more structure on the rear of the ship as well. I kind of abandoned the rear of the ship, not because I wasn't happy with the layout. I think I got a good layout going. By the way, guys, if I talk too much or too loud this time, I do have some music playing in the background which you guys can't hear. Just so you know, I might have a tendency to talk a bit loud. So the main changes you will notice is in the cargo bay here with the floor work I've been doing. And we'll just move this over to complete that. Lots of work trying to just get the hull together with intersections which are going to be printable, because the reason I abandoned / moved on from the engineering section is because we can't start printing the engineering section. We need to kind of start from where we finish the end of the ship, which is here. So we've got to get started on this section down here. So there are a couple of different things I have to take into account. But I did actually test print for the first time in months the first piece, which is going to be for the door. So it's a sliding door that we have here, right? So a few adjustments need to be made. It didn't slide very well. It was a bit too tight. The connections are a little bit fragile. You can kind of see here it doesn't like to move in the housing that much. So this part here, let's damn, I need to close that off. Where did it go? There's always emails popping up, otherwise I should probably have paused Dropbox, but it's not going to be going off because Albin isn't here today. So yeah, we could get on the close-up if you see that. Oops, a little bit better. So so this actually has some tracks it's supposed to run in and work similar to a van door, so it should be sliding. But yeah, it's a bit tight at the moment. I have a new door on the printer which should be finished. It is supposed to be finished, but I did not get it out in time, so let's stick to Maya for now. I'm going to put some lights on so you guys can see a bit of the contrast in here. I kind of am digging the way that this is working out. I've made a couple of modifications, and the main modification I've made compared to the original deck plans is just very, very tiny stuff at this stage. That is moving these bulkheads so that the squares are actually flush with that, so you can fit more cargo in. This back wall still overlaps between two tiles, and the same is true of this forward section. As I'm going to think about the layout, again, we can have a look at deck C, which is where we want to be. We have this turret access. In this case, they are auto turrets, they're not manned turrets, so an access hatch is what I'm thinking. And in fact, this was the last thing I was working on, which is this square here. So the center section needs to be replaced by a panel that would allow access to the turret below. Assumably, you could install a manned turret if you wanted to. There's no reason to do this in a hard sci-fi setting. But if you want the Star Wars rule of cool factor, you can still go for it. We also have, let's see, we have, I think there were a couple of changes to engineering on the deck above. I'll turn the lighting off again because things will just move along a lot quicker. So if we put on the side hole here, oh, is that meant to all be there? No, deck A sides or something, that's a problem. Okay, so deck B interior. So we kind of like, this is the interior I'm thinking of going for. Technically, the drives are supposed to be 10 squares each, which is why they have this sort of like L shape. And I figured we'd just use that space for some pipes that go down into the level below. So there we go. So the idea is that they come out from there and get fed into there, although technically we could just have them feeding straight into there as well, I guess. That might actually make more sense to have these be like whoops. Let's see, I want that at 0. No, 90. 80 and 90. Alright, so my head's actually in the way of the statistics I'm reading off. But yeah, if we did something like this maybe, that would make more sense. That probably works fairly nicely, and in that way, like the machinery, because the 10 tons of squares, it's not, that's 10 combined both drives, right? It's like room for the hardware and like the support for those systems. And technically it would probably be better to have control panels here in those corners to sort of make it, yeah, I don't know. That's what I would do if it was my ship. If it was my ship, I'd probably change the layout slightly so that these drives just occupied this space and you've got actually some room for something else here. Great thing is there's plenty of room for upgrades as it is. So I don't know if it just the ship has too many squares as it is or what the deal is, but that will definitely be an upgrade. I feel like an upgraded engineering where we stick in a total of additional jump drives, I guess, and increase the engine size. Don't actually have to increase it that much. I think instead of like 10 tons, it becomes 14 tons, which to be honest is just like if you filled in that square, these two squares, and then like 2 squares there and 2 squares there. So it wouldn't be a huge change. Same for the drives, I believe. We just make those 3 wide instead of 2. And essentially you're where you need to be. And then you could technically just double the fusion drives as 2. The problem that you get with that is the increased need for fuel. So the drive compartment has plenty of room for expansion, right? But you would have to sacrifice more of this drive compartment for fuel bladders. That's essentially what the issue would be. So yeah, the turret access well, in this case it's just going to be, we'll have some semiotics and a panel there. And we might do it something similar to how, like you could easily just switch it out for a flat panel like that. We'll make it an option, I guess, for manned turrets. The turrets, we're probably just going to take the turrets off of the Type S, or we'll try and go for the, this style of turret here from the Mega Traveler, although I would need to get a good look at what they think that is, because it looks, it's hard to tell exactly how it looks, even though we've got a couple of different versions. I believe that those might not necessarily be twin turrets, but yeah. So we all of this paneling work, that's just my I guess my, what I call my draft board. So I'll probably just add these pieces. This can be deleted. It's from the or do we want the tanks for something? I'll have a think about that. So I'm gonna put these in my draft board layer. Oops. So essentially we just hide it so it's not in the way. So yeah, I did a test print of this last night, but I hadn't finished with the floor paneling. So what we're going to do is finish this off to give it a nice finish. I did accidentally delete some of this morning, but was able to recover it all right. And yeah, we just continue to add a bit of detail. All right, so I'll be testing this door later, and we'll see if I can't see if this needs some additional changes before I head home. I don't know how long the stream will be today. It is kind of a half day, so maybe we'll do a half stream. But ideally I want to repurpose these to give a sort of like warning strip. If we look at the base tile itself, you can see I've made this lip here. That's mostly so that we can, if I put the lights back on, it kind of guides the floor rests on this section, and then there's room for this the sort of sliding door mechanics to work. It's not quite as good as a real sliding door. I don't know if this will be the winner design. I need to test print it some more. We're also going to implement some any of you guys that might be on the tribe might have seen that John had started working on the awesome new lockers. No, I don't want to restart now. The awesome new lockers, which have these separate doors that you just clip in. They work really great. So we're probably going to repurpose some of those mechanics to make the bay doors for the landing gear at the rear. And we actually have some of the geometry in place here, so I don't know where the pivots aren't quite where they should be, but if we move this pivot point to over here, we should be able to demonstrate the effect. Right, so these open up like so. So essentially we just want a much, I don't know if this is still too small, but these doors should be nicer as a solution than the pre-existing solution, which was to simply use the hinges from the hinge clips. Sorry, a bit all over the place today. So it's coming together nicely, I feel. I'm also going to put in some panels here, which would open up and reveal what is in here, which is the there is actually, if we look at the deck plans again, this symbol here, if we look at the key, it's this one. It indicates hatch above plus deck, which means hatch deck, I guess it means it's in the floor. hatch above means it's in the ceiling, which implies that there's a hatch here, meaning there is actually an airlock on the floor here. Again, we come to the totally unrealistic division here of the mechanics. So I'm guessing maybe that's why this is all the way it is, but I mean, this is only 1.5 meters of clearance, which would mean that this little power terminal is essentially in a crawl space. So that obviously is not the case in our version. We have full clearance to the ceiling. It's just that, the engines kind of go through the floor just a little bit if we once again put on the B deck. So there is a slight issue of clearance there, but at the moment it works well. Let's see, maybe I should read the chat a bit. Could kit bash fuel bladders onto the second floor wall in cargo? I'd be inclined to offer that as a stretch goal. A couple of upgrades, common upgrades, I think. The lockers look good. Could probably put a few on the floor for a pass-through access. The doors would be good for the cargo containers. Oh, that's a good idea too, yeah. I would be happy with the computer version. No need for printed version here. I mean, you can get it in Deck Designer, or we'll be able to get it in Deck Designer. So, might almost be cool to do a version of Deck Designer where, like, you could use the built-in Unity capability to sort of like create a player and run through the level of the ship. Although I don't know how well it would handle ladders and such. Let's see. I would be happy to. The big problem with fuel bladders is that the fuel is liquid hydrogen. It would need a lot of insulation and strong walls. I mean, future tech materials, right? Much safer to store as water. I wish Mark would just give you free rein to redesign the traveler ships. Just keep the silhouette, but internals are revamped. You have some flexibility, but look, let's be honest. The problem here is the shape of the hull. All right, so let's look at the ship and see where we could conceivably do something about that. So again, I'm going to turn off the lights because we're going to have a much easier time of traveling through the ship. Let's turn off deck B, and we'll turn off deck A side so we can look down in here. So the problem is we have these steps, right? You can customize what's inside these rooms technically. That should not be an issue. So if you wanted to have a workshop instead, you could use that space for a workshop. Oh, this isn't black. Maybe let's just make this black real quick for the sake of aesthetics. Aesthetics are important. And also this is a easy way to cheat and make... What? Why isn't that working? So yeah, this is just a way that you can kind of see where the walls are at. Oh, that's right. We actually lost this in a crash, but it already 3D printed it, so it's a sort of replacement piece. So maybe that was related to that. In any case, we, it is somewhat customizable. So these aren't really ready to go. These are just a placeholder furniture. That furniture stuff is sort of like the last thing I'm going to put in. But you could conceivably change what machinery you want to put in the front. So you could represent upgrading the Astrionics or whatever we're calling it. You could replace the low berths, use something with that space. Although the issue is with these very, very tight floors, if we look at this from the side, the floors have had to be built in. And the reason for this being is that there's just not enough... There would be some space in here that you could have put in some custom stuff, but here it's a question of what's stable. So less so with this passage, it's pretty much the way it is. And the other issue, if you're changing the semiotics, you would have to like manually be able to switch that out, I guess. Um, and you could conceivably mirror either of these rooms. So if you wanted an airlock on both sides, it would be possible. And I think it actually, yeah, there's very few symbols that would really affect. I think the airlock symbol would be mirrored, but it's probably not too much of an issue. Most of these symbols won't look that bad when mirrored. Um, so yeah, there's very little customization you can do because of the nature of these, again, these flaws that are sort of built in. And this is just like, at the edges, it becomes impossible to customize these. And it's like, yeah, sure, we could say take the tiles that are like here and you could customize those, but then it's not gonna, when you've got these built in anyway. I would rather sort of like open it up for fan ideas about what customizations we can do and then offer that as sort of like these stretch goals. Again, the Beowulf is going to be more of a like major release, so we're going to put the starting goal for funding on Kickstarter at something a lot more reasonable for what we're trying to finance. So instead of starting the stretch goals at like 10,000 crowns or something like that, it'll be starting at like 300,000 crowns. Basically, we need to start moving away from the company's simply grown, but it means also that we have a lot of upfront costs. I've been working on this since February. Sure, I had a month off to help Albin with Starship, the Next Generation, the crowdfunding campaign we have going at the moment. Hey, we've got a new backer. Yay. Welcome, new backer. So this is still running for another 11 days. It's just a mini crowdfunding campaign. Well, not really crowdfunding campaign. It's a My Mini Factory Frontier, which is essentially a pre-order. I mean, you get all the stuff immediately, so it's an order, I guess, but a cheaper initial run. Let's see. Also dangerous if there's a leak. Tons of liquid H2 would expand to 830 TRAV. Tons of volume. Yeah. Okay, so how am I finding the frontiers? It's going to be really hard to figure that out. I think, honestly, for you, that blasted salmon flange, it could be an interesting thing to test because you don't have the built-in audience that's on you do have some built-in audience on Kickstarter, but I don't know. Did you do a post campaign on My Mini Factory, like for delivery after the fact? Because that can affect. Oh, this is backwards. I just realized. That can affect whether or not you already have existing customers essentially on the platform. That's the main thing that is maybe the biggest issue for someone starting out like you. I know you've run one campaign before, but correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know how many backers you ended up with. Usually, I'd estimate about half the backers you got last time might stick with you in a new campaign if they like your stuff. Otherwise, you kind of got to hunt new people. Now, MMF does have the benefit of coming with a bunch of people that are already there to invest in miniatures and other 3D printables, right? So that's a huge advantage over Kickstarter, where you're in a niche of a niche. However, there is still the caveat that the you're still probably not going to get the. My Mini Factory doesn't normally do so much preferential treatment, but because I work with them for the platform. That the campaigns I've had on there have been backed where, you know, we've been supported on the front page in the first couple of days and the last couple of days. And that also corresponds to when the most funding come through. So it's hard to know, to be honest. As with many things in this industry, it's just there are so many things that it's really, really hard to estimate or guess how well something's going to perform, which is a point of frustration for me, and I'm sure it's a point of frustration for you. But it's kind of like just the way it is, I guess. So I'm just going to try and slice this, and I'm going to do it by using a bit of a cheat here. So I'm going to use this mesh to be able to, let's see, I'll go into 4. So I'm going to do the wall is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a slice here, but I'm actually going to use this other mesh as a guide. So I'm going to go from there to there, hit enter. And now you see this is sliced across that wall. And that happily corresponds exactly to where we want to get rid of this mesh. So I just got to close it off. So I don't know, it's hard to say. I'm happy with this campaign. It looks like we're going to hit at least 25,000 dollary dues, which is our burn rate for about 2.5 months. So things are expensive, both running a business from Sweden, but also, you know, we have essentially three employees, I guess. Lisa Lott and John work part-time, Alban works full-time, and I work full-time. So it gets to be a lot. It can be stressful sometimes. So this, but as a concept of a mini campaign that helps you sort of like survive between main launches. Like we'll only have the one main launch this year with the Beowulf because it's such a massive, massive ship. It is by far I think volume-wise, it's our biggest ship. It's probably similar to the Chimera, but it's way more complex because of its shape. So now we actually have to move this back into place as well, but we can use our regular grid. So I figure you want these true warning stripes when you're getting to, you know, like keep clear sort of territory. And I also want to make these ones around the doorways because you probably don't want to park cargo there. You still want enough clearance that you could conceivably leave, assuming that everything's pressurized, you could leave the med bay here and go to the stairwell, right? I mean, alternatively, you could go this way, but you have to come all the way around to use the lift and get up, right? So the idea being that these red lines are like, keep this area clear. And then most of the time you're going to want this passage to be clear as well. So maybe I'll do these with a different color or something. I'm not sure. Let's see. Got a few more people, but not much. Okay, but the important thing there, right, if you did your post campaign on there, the important thing is those people are still on My Mini Factory already. So My Mini Factory can possibly appeal to those people that bought your stuff. But then the other problem is My Mini Factory send out so many updates and messages and whatnot that, you know, there's quite a lot of noise. Let's see. Besides, water requires less volume to store, the same amount of H2 versus... Right, but correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I mean, couldn't you just store it as water? Because, I mean, you want to store oxygen as well, right? And then you would just have splitting on board the ship. I don't know. It's probably, I don't know. I've only had limited interactions with Mark, but at the end of the day, too, it's like, yes, it's a harder sci-fi role-playing game, but it's still a role-playing game. It's still a basic simulation. Even T5, which is more complex with, you know, all the power management and that sort of stuff. I wouldn't necessarily. I don't necessarily think that that's an optimal version. Like I've played Traveler before, but I have played mostly Mongoose and Cepheus for the reason specifically that T5. I think its main problem might not be its complexity, but the way it presents information. And I know it's trying to mimic a military manual, and that's fine. But I wasn't in the military, and I find it hard to read. Now, why isn't that matching? That's off by just a tiny bit. Actually, they're different widths. I wonder why. Anyway, not important. We want to get this finished so that tonight when we leave we can have version 2 on the printer, right? So let's see. MMF update emails suck. Yes, I agree. I honestly think they would do well if they could correlate things down into like a summary email once a week that tells you what you've got, especially for creators. Let's see. Thanks for the input as always. I don't know how hard it would be. Could you do a red LED light by the cargo doors? I mean, lights I've been thinking about, and I mean, Zorima is out there, but we haven't had as much communication as we've had on past projects. We have talked about lighting the cockpit and the engines, of course. What I'm thinking of exploring is the wireless sort of solutions where you've got a magnetic bed basically underneath. What's it called? Induction lighting. So you don't need cables. But induction lights do tend to be quite bulky. So I don't know. I think you could quite easily take the underside here and add some lighting that wouldn't be too obnoxious, so that when the ramp is down, you get a nice red lighting coming out or something like that. Because if we look at B deck again, we have this floor, right? And you could just sort of like stick a couple of lights to that, and it wouldn't be visible in most shots anyway. So we'll see how we solve that in the end. Like I said, there's probably 6 weeks left of this. I mean, I have worked 3 or 4 more days since I said that, but this is a short week, essentially. Let's see. Guys, can you play a space game using your ships so we can see them in action? That would be play a space game. You mean like on the tabletop? I'm not entirely sure what system aside from Traveller itself you could actually conceivably use it for. That's one of the main issues. Like D&D has very obvious applications. There's not. I don't think since I played Saga Edition Star Wars, there's been a game where it felt good mechanically in that way. I don't think I could go back to it because of all the bonuses and that. Like if they maybe 5E'd it a bit. Or do you mean computer game, Patrick? Let's see. I should print them and run a full thrust game. What Ben just said. I don't know what I even said. Even though I did write some of those manuals in a previous slide, it isn't very friendly. No, like the T5 stuff. Let's see. I don't have anything open at the moment. But yeah, it does feel. It does feel like it's just. It's too much information, and it's hard to see how it all fits together because it's not illustrated graphically. Modern gaming feels like it needs slightly less crunchy system. I feel if you could get some celebrity gaming for sci-fi RPGs, it would help a lot. I think sci-fi role-playing games need something. Fantasy Flight Star Wars just was a step away from the tabletop miniature experience. Which is a shame because I have a ton of Star Wars miniatures still and really, really enjoyed like playing Dawn of Defiance and Saga Edition. It was a great system for the time, and the way you chose classes and class features, I think it still hasn't been done better for me at the moment, where you could kind of mix and match your classes and talent trees instead of you could come up with a concept and build it in a couple of levels rather than having to get to level 11 for your Batman to come online as you envisaged it for like level 1. But yeah, the sci-fi role-playing games, I know there's like I'd like to try Stargrave. I haven't tried it. So I mean, these are great for cons too. I feel like if you had like a con and you have some kind of boarding action in the con, like these ships would be fantastic for that. But I feel like also the biggest market for these will be just traveler fans that have always imagined having a Beowulf sitting on their desk. I mean, most of their desk, but still. Let's see. Age actually has a decent system for the Expanse RPG. I disagree because I feel if there is any system where I want to see more crunch, it's the Expanse. It just feels like its hard sci-fi approach deserves more crunch than the abstract solution that they gave. I have played a couple of Age games before. The ship-to-ship stuff didn't impress me. Because that's the other thing. You need to make ship-to-ship as exciting as, hand-to-hand combat. Let's see. Core space, 5 parsecs from home, Stargrave, and so on. Yeah, I mean, it could be worth testing, especially when we've got it built. Age actually has a decent... we've read that one. D6 Star Wars, I've never played that. It was a little bit before my time, or rather I was playing other games at the time. Power projection escort would probably be suitable for these size ships. But at 28 millimeters, that's the question. Give me a couple of years and I have ideas for a spaceship game for tabletop. I know that someone did a full thrust mod for small traveler ships. I think like something that would be more like a boarding action, like some kind of Space Pirates game, would maybe be the right direction. Maybe something similar to what I originally envisaged before I got into this and I was making my own computer game, Space Battleship Royale, where you played a privateer. It did have boarding actions, but it was meant to be an abstract only because I don't have the resources for that. Now, what did I do with... There was... Did I delete that? Or do I have a copy here? Alright, let's see. If I mirror this, we can look at the shape we were going for before. Is that right? That looks wrong. I think we changed that. Alright, you know what we're going to do? We're going to scratch that one. And we're just going to do the cheat version by making this built in. So there's a lot of consideration that has to go into this stuff. I've had a hard time cutting off this wall because if we look at this piece from above, you can see that unfortunately some of these intakes for the fuel, or rather the unrefined fuel, stick into the next section. So it would have been ideal to cut it off at this wall, at this tile, but we're going to have to go deeper, which just means I'm going to have to get creative with the way the tank is going to be, because we need to print it sort of like standing like so, right? So this will be the next challenge after this one. So really I'm probably focusing on the wrong area again, but I probably do want this to hang over the edge since we print it this way. If we look at some of our earlier tiles, you can see that this time around I have the floors actually overlapping to hide some of those seams. And this has worked really well so far. Let's see, the 1 to 270 scale ships could be used with Dirt Side or Future War Commander. So player ship is 28mm scale, but enemy ships are tactical scale. Well, I mean, the whole point of having the miniatures versus the 28mm is because you want to visualize the battle. You're not going to do that at 28mm scale. But you want to visualize boarding action, then yeah, you definitely want to do that at like at that scale, at 28mm. You might even want to do it larger, but I'm not going to print any larger than 28. I feel like it's a good compromise between detail levels, and yeah, you can't get as much detail out of the miniatures, but it looks great. Where am I going with this? Right, yes. So we basically want to get this bit, and I think essentially these floor plates. So if we isolate these, this will all be one piece with this overlap happening. But first we need to fix this. And we can kind of afford to do that because of the way that we've set up the overlapping plates and the print direction rather. So this section here, that prints out flat on the plate like so. If you can imagine that the plate is here. And then our next piece is the opposite, so it prints out like this. So those overlaps are fine. However, at present, they're probably not deep enough. And we're going to delete that one and replace it with this, because we want manifold objects. Manifold being no holes. And I think before we integrate these plates completely, let's just grab it all and isolate just the plates, because I have a sneaking suspicion, like here we don't have anything going back to the wall, so we need something to fit in there. And we're just going to double check and make sure there's no holes. That all looks good. Let's see. Back to the Beowulf. With the unused space for the fuel tanks, could you totally do a dice tower stretch goal? Quite possibly. You could use the 28mm scale ship for space combat if you rent a village hall and use the floor to stage your battles on. It would still be an abstract battle. Because of the distances, of course. So I'm just going to do a really dirty job here again, and I'm going to go into vertex snap mode, create a new face here. And then we're just going to grab that, extrude it along here. And then we're just going to do our standard 0.3, 0.15, I think it is. Wait, that doesn't look right. Oh, I guess these are just 0.3, 0.3s. Yeah. All right, nice and easy. So we have our floor there. So what I'm going to do now is actually combine these, just so that they're all in one spot, and then we're going to focus on combining these together. But before I get any further with this, I think we may need to reinforce this floor, because that's going to be quite thin. When I said 0.3 up there, that's 0.3 millimeters, right? So this is less than a millimeter thick. So we probably want to thicken that up a little bit, and then we can have a socket on the other side that allows us to slot it in all right. So again, the easiest thing is probably actually to create a new shape. Let me just put my... Yeah, I think we just create a new shape that we'll just attach. So if we go here, just make the 4 corners. I'll have to cheat and do this manually. So we've got our face there. I'm going to grab this and we'll snap it to the edge again. All right. And then we're just going to extrude down. And in this case, we'll actually use our extrusion tools. Now, if I've got 0.3 and 0.3 up there, that's 0.6 millimeters. I probably want to make this floor about 2 millimeters thick. So we want to go 1.4 down. It's quite deep, but this will print well as opposed to the other existing options. And I'm just going to include this in the same object again. So the idea is that we just get the same sort of pivot points going. And this is a very dirty mesh. This isn't the best solution, but I didn't want to change too much until I knew exactly the configuration I was going to have, and I was kind of stressed out last night when I was getting on the printer because I had to go home in 5 minutes. So let's see. At my age, gaming on the floor is not as appealing as a concept as it once was. No, agreed. Dodgy Left Hip agrees with you. I have a feeling that a lot of Traveller fans tend to be on the upper end of age-wise of gamers these days, just by virtue of the venerable status of Traveller as a game, I guess. So we have this inner hull section. It would be nice to have something that makes it feel like this is, actually the superstructure of a ship. So what I might do is just take a couple of these sections and I'm just going to do some extrusions. And what we're going to do is offset extrusions. We're just going to go to 1. And we're just going to do that in a couple of places. With our goal being that we're going to extrude in and out to create... I never checked to see if there was actually a clip on that deck. Let's see. Let's add in deck B sides. No, okay, we missed it. Yeah, the idea was that this will slot down on top of that, so it'll be a sort of jigsaw puzzle. Because we wanted this frame to be all one piece so that it holds it nicely in place. Alright, so again, we're just going to make a couple of these sections, and the idea being that this is just going to indicate areas where you can see the basic skeleton of the ship, right? Ooh, I don't like that that's not straight though. Oh, we can fix that manually. So let's just go down to like here, do the same thing, offset 1. You can see it's kind of ugly, but we're just going to manually fix some of these issues. And I'll go into Target World Tool to do that. Ooh, that took forever. So maybe if I look at this, yeah, I've got a lot of these issues there. So we delete the history and it should respond quicker now. Let's go to Vertex, Target World Tool again. And there we go, we've got it straightened up. And actually we'll go down to there too, because that's just going to be hard to select. It creates a couple of issues that we want to avoid. And actually, oops, not that one. Well, Traveller fans are older. So many terms of service. Remember, so old as it died in character creation. Sadly, not a possibility anymore, I don't believe. Alright, so there will be a clip sort of slightly sticking out of there. I haven't tested it yet, but I don't think it'll look too horrible. And I mean, it's usually acceptable for toys, right, to show some of the detail of the toy. So let's just grab this frame. And, oh, this bottom one needs fixing as well. So, again, we're just going to Let's just do some general merges instead. It seems to be responding better. Same here. All right. So what I'm really looking for here is like seeing what is going to work well. If I do a loop here, this isn't really ideal, this corner here, but we're going to do some extrusions. We might, I don't want to reselect all that, so I think we'll just set this here. And we're just going to go 0.15 and 0.15. So that's 150 microns, not so much. But we're just creating a little bit of depth. And then we're going to go in with these by 1 millimeter. And in so doing, we just get these more interesting sort of like structures that look maybe like, whoops, I just want to go back -1, there we go. All right, we do have a little bit of an issue here where there's actually a conflict with the clip hole. I think in the actual version that we print, that'll solve itself though. We'll see. But yeah, it just gives us a more interesting shape. If I turn off the wireframe there, you can kind of see that looks more like a ship's hull, right? And maybe in the final version I might go back and add a couple of cables or, you know, some kind of mechanism that looks like it's attached to the door mechanism. Let's see. You know, if you had an app as a character creator minigame, death in character generation could be brought back. You push your lock mechanic. I mean, it depends. I guess the thing is you can't really run a dead character, can you? So let's see. I'm going to put on deck B again. We don't actually have a wall there. So that'll be a part of the... Wait, let's see. Deck B side. Okay. So it's already integrated there. Yeah, okay, we're going to have an additional piece there. So the thing is, we kind of want to emulate the position of, let's see, where this gray section is, or dark gray section. Darker gray, I guess. There we go. That was almost in place anyway. And that looks like it is extruded at the 1.5 as well. So if we just take these, it's hard to tell by eye, but I think that's straight across. So we'll just go 0.15, 0.15. And then I think we divide this section up into 2 maybe. But after we lift this just slightly to be there, because we want to add like a pattern for where, you know, this would follow on the wall that's presumably carrying on there. So I think we can leave that off. So we just put that at 0.1, 0.1, because that's how thick the wall should be. There are going to be issues, I'm sure, but actually, you know what we'll do? We'll go up to here, and then we'll go 1 on the offset. We'll fix this, and then we're going to get clever. Well, what counts for clever for me? So, I mean, technically this isn't like the best fit, but it's good enough. What I might do now is actually go in and cheat a little bit, and I'm just going to grab there and there. And then like there and whoops. Yeah, I don't like the patterning entirely. Maybe I'll go down as low as here, like, and we'll get rid of this one. With the idea being that if we then, we'll see how it looks. I might not like it and I'll revert. But it looks like the thickness is fairly decent. So if I go -1 here, the question is like, how does it look compared to the rest of it? I think we'll stick to square, eh? It's a cool concept, but poorly executed. Alright, so I want to get rid of those. I think this will be quicker. And we also need to fix this aberration. Space Necromancer, say otherwise, dead characters are viable. Slaves. I gotta admit, like, that was one of the disappointing things about Starfinder. Like, I understand why they did it. It's fantasy in space, but I was hoping they would go full sci-fi. So I think if we just cheat here, move that to there, and then move this over just a tad, and then we'll do our indentations again. -1, and then we just select our frame. And then we did 0.15, I think. All right, so that looks better, I think, than just a flat surface. So not too bad for a prototype. So I've got what I feel I need to stick on my printer tonight, which will be this. And so tomorrow, hopefully I can test that new door in this new frame. I may need some further refinement, but I believe if I grab the pivot points of all of these objects and move them to the same place. Hang on, I need to put the snap on there. And we'll just make sure that's on our grid too. So that'll be about the height of the floor. So technically now if I freeze the transformations and export these two objects, they should end up in the same place. Let's see, I need Prusa Slicer. And then we'll get that on the plate, and there are some issues, 24 errors. We just netfab these at this stage. With a ship this big, I'm not going to go looking for every single error, and the benefit is that the netfab will make sure that there are less issues. Now, I like to put my print seams... Wait, is this right? Yes. So I believe my seam should be towards the back. Let's see, layers and perimeters. Seam position should be rear. And then that's why I rotate my objects like so often. So I should get the seam here and along this inside. This will need a bit more detailing, but like I said, this is really just another prototype. If I slice it, it's a 4-hour print. So not too much filament lost, not too much time lost. That nice detail is popping. So hopefully that will conclude today's session. I'm going to export this now. Yeah, I wonder why the name got cut off. Maybe it's too long. Oh well. Okay, so to summarize, Cargo Bay is what we've been focusing on. I think it's coming along nicely. What do you guys think? I'm really loving this ship at the moment. Back into it full scale. Loving solving some of these issues. It is a mental challenge. The same as with the tiles. Like, yeah, guys, once you've got a template up and running, you can make variations of that relatively easily. But creating those templates in the first place is a lot of trial and error. So I'm Ben from Second Dynasty. Check us out with the links that are down below the video. And yeah, check out our most recent campaign. If you haven't already, the link should be in that as well. And I will catch you guys next week.